من خلال أسئلتهم الخاصة. لذلك بداية من الآن سيتم توزيع كروت ورقية يرجى كتابة وتوضيح اسم المشارك وأيضا الجنسية، ثم طرح التساؤل الخاص به. نبدأ فعاليات هذه الجلسة من على يمين المنصة. سيد الرئيس إدريس ديبي رئيس دولة تشاد، أنظار العالم منذ فترة تتجه نحو القارة السمراء بما أنها تسعى إلى تحقيق التنمية بشكل ملحوظ. إذن كيف وضعت تشاد استراتيجيتها والخطة طويلة المدى في تمكين شبابها من تحقيق كل هذه الخطط التي تسعى للتنمية؟
Merci,
شكرا جزيلا سيدتي.
Distingués invités, mesdames et messieurs, abordés à rang et qualité respectés.
مع احترامي
الجميع répondre à la question précise qui vient d'être posée. Féliciter chaleureusement mon frère le président Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, son gouvernement et peuple égyptien pour avoir organisé cette grande rencontre de la jeunesse planétaire. Je voudrais aussi en même temps particulièrement remercier pour m'avoir invité à cette rencontre, de donner ma petite contribution comme panéliste à la question précise qui vient de poser, mais d'une manière générale, je dirais la question qui préoccupe aujourd'hui tous les dirigeants du monde, et j'en fais partie, la question de la jeunesse dans un monde de tout. Comme vous le savez, l'Afrique, le continent noir, fait partie du monde, de la planète.
Africa is a continent,
La mondialisation,
an integral part of the whole world. Globalization had affected our continent. Hence, the issue of youth, be they in Africa, Asia, Europe, or the USA, throughout the globe, are the youth everywhere. Our globe, our planet, suffers from numerous challenges and related issues. First, the current situation of youth in Africa or elsewhere. We may address the conflicts, terrorism, climate change, and poverty and unemployment. All these are issues that impact the future of the whole world and our planet. It particularly impacts the youth. Africa cannot be outside this universal march. Africa is part and parcel of the whole world, of the whole globe. Africa faces unique challenges. However, the challenges that face Africa are rather similar to the challenges worldwide. This forum is held at a time where we note that the continent faces serious challenges. The first challenge relates to security challenges and what pertains to terrorism, as well as political crises in times prior to elections or resulting from elections. All these crises have generated the so-called terrorism in the Sahel. The youth in the African Horn were forced to resort to irregular migration as an outlet for the situation. Despite the risks they are prone to as they travel for thousands of kilometers, they cross the Mediterranean and the desert. 6,000 youth are drowned and face problems. These are part of the challenges that face the African continent. Honestly, in 2016, I was the president of the African Union. I raised the issue of youth as a main topic for the AU summit. This issue is of paramount importance, as we have to benefit of harnessing the demographic dividend through investment in youth. In 2017, I held in Jemena a forum that includes youth from 54 African countries. I personally chaired this forum in collaboration with the new president, the incoming president of AU, Professor Alpha Conde. We prepared a document that would stimulate development of youth for African youth. This document has been circulated during the January summit of the AU, and it was fully supported by all the African leaders and presidents. Consequently, we have a document that may serve as a roadmap that all president has to apply and implement in favor of youth. As you are fully aware, our continent has borders. It has tremendously suffered. History notes this: slavery, imperialism, and the new colonialism, poverty, diseases, and many evils and problems that have detrimental impact on Africa. It even impedes our march and makes us accountable as leaders. Meanwhile, this gives rise to further concerns. We have to bear our responsibility and to work in a manner so that all African countries would exert efforts. At the level of the AU, we have decided to develop Youth Fund. This fund shall be managed by youth themselves. The African countries, volunteers and parties with good intentions and will, financial partners, as well as contribution through subscriptions and the contributions of businessmen. This fund had been developed, and fundraising should be in a progressive process in order to resolve youth issues. This also relates to the responsibility of youth themselves. They have to dispense with the idea of migrating to other countries to seek solutions. It's rather more favorable to stay in their own homeland, create their own opportunities, because opportunities are available in Africa, be it in the field of livestock breeding, technology, agriculture. Opportunities are available. These opportunities have to be utilized by youth. They have to benefit from such opportunities according to their own vision. As I have mentioned a while ago, we cannot become rich overnight, and in order to enjoy richness and transform our countries, we have to work more. With respect to developed countries in the West or Asia, they have become developed through serious work. They were able to build their own countries. Africa has to spare no effort. We're not supposed to be shackled and wait for solutions from heavenly solutions like rainfall, for instance. Of course, water and rainfall are through the sky, but we have to work and toil. Youth in general and African youth in particular have to dispense with the idea of are not supposed to give in or feel desperate. So we have to seek solutions in Africa, not outside Africa. There is further potentials and opportunities. The African youth are being recruited by terrorist groups. This is a new phenomenon that threatens the security of all African countries. Hence, youth have to undertake a role. They are the future of our continent. They have to be in the forefront of struggle against radicalism and terrorism. There is no religion worldwide that calls for bloodshed. Monotheistic religions do not call for violence or bloodshed. Happiness, prosperity, welfare cannot emerge suddenly through dreams. They are realized through work. True, there are some shortcomings through some leaders and officials, but on the other hand, there are certain shortages and shortcomings with respect to youth. This is the advice I'd like to share with the youth. You have to struggle. You have to be courageous and bold to create opportunities in your own homelands in order to progress forward to realize this development within your own countries. Youth and adults or those who have become old, they have to toil as well. Thank you. This advice is essential not only for the African youth, but the world youth. Excellency President, then let us complement the dialogue with the other panelists. And we'd like to listen to their comment on your intervention. And there is another point I'd like to address Ms. Lamia. The panelists usually in the field of human development derive their experience from their own personal experience. Accordingly, I'd like to pose the question to Lamia Haji Bashar, Yazidi human rights activist who survived ISIS. Through your own personal experience, how can the youth to proceed with their life through successes, regardless of the harsh challenges as you have experienced?
Thank you very much. Today I'm going to speak about Daesh and what did they do with me. When Daesh entered Singam, 50% of the Yazidis were taken and others were besieged. They killed the men, but not only that, they killed women as well, who are aged. They killed 80 women from my village, those who were old in age. And The young girls were taken as slaves. They took me as a slave as well. If you know what the Daesh did with the young girls, a girl who was 8 years old, up till a woman who has 5 children. You can't imagine what did they do with those women. I saw we used to stay in a big hall like the market. So people used to pass, to cross, to see the girl. I like this girl, and he buys her. They used to sell the girls. Each of the men would pass through the girls, and whoever he likes, he's going to buy. I was bought as well. 5 times maybe I was sold in the market. 4 times I tried to escape, but I never was able to escape. They used to sell us 4 or 5 times per day. One of the emir of the Daesh, he used to take 5, 6 from Yazidis girls. And in Iraq, we were 5. The Iraqi doctor bought 5. A girl 8 years old and 9 years old, and another 15, and another was 17 years old, and 20 years. 5 women were used as slaves for this Iraqi doctor. It was an open market. It was like a market. In their court, they put the pictures of the girls and with their prices. Each girl has her own price, and the man, when he passes, he will select a girl to buy, and then they exchange us. It is not only buying, they give us as presents to others. For this reason, 1 year and 8 months, I really suffered. I was in pain. I was bought and sold. But I saw everything during the 1 year and 8 months. That's why I will not be silent. After being freed from Daesh, I was not able to be silent. I have to speak about what took place against the innocent women and children. Because the Yazidi are a minority. We're living for thousands of years in Iraq now. But we have been always abused in Iraq. We had the 74 campaign for genocides against us in Iraq. The most important village of the Yazidis was invaded. A car has been exploded there, and thousands were killed during this explosion. For this reason, I decided to go and relate my story and the story of thousands of girls, and I want to give a lesson to the youth, because Daesh used to write and take pictures for those young people. If they raped women, or they killed women, or they killed men, if they take the children from their mothers, they say that they will go to heaven due to this. The children who were 8 months old, they used to be kidnapped from their mother. My niece was 2 years old, and she was taken from her mother. They took her from my sister. A lot of the children do not know their families. They were kidnapped by the Daesh. They cannot even speak Kurdi, but they speak only the Arabic language. Daesh used to take the children and train them in the training camps in order to become from Daesh. They tell the children, kill your parents, they are unbelievers. They did all these crimes under the name of religion. They said the Yazidis are unbelievers because they do this under the name of the religion only. All those before the Daesh, there were other groups who came and they killed men and took women. It's very difficult to say this story once and once again, but I have to speak about it. I have to because I'm a victim and I saw all these things with my own eyes. I'm narrating this. I want to tell you what happened to the Yazidis. I want to speak in order that this would not be repeated once again against any child or men. What is the crime that an 8-year-old girl did in order to be raped? What did she do? What about the children who were taken from their mothers and trained them how to use the weapons and tell them, go and kill your parents? For this reason, I cannot be silent. I have to speak about all those things. I'm ready in different countries of the world to go and to speak about this in order that such things would not be repeated with others. And I hope that you would stand against this. Do not accept once again that this should be repeated. Lamia, you are an honorable, positive example, not only for the Iraqi youth, but for the Arab youth and youth all over the world. You are a hero, by the way. Thank you. Now we go to Japan. I give the floor to Mr. Hidetake Koike, the founder and the special advisor for the Japanese Youth Program for Sustainability. Mr. Hidetake, we know that Japan has an experience which is very successful and honorable in the world, not only from the economic perception, but from different aspects. Maybe the most important thing in which Japan depended was to invest the human resources, and the reflection of these are depending upon natural resources as well. How can you achieve this? And the most important is, how is it possible to continue in Japan for a very long period?
Hi, thank you so much for the questions. And good morning all. My name is Hirotaka Koike, just call me Hiro. That's very easy. And I'm from Japan Youth Platform for Sustainability, and I have another hat that is a United Nations major group for children youth. So I would like to take, building on the questions and then kind of expand into the main topic of these sessions, which is kind of challenges we face and how we overcome at the youth perspective. So the foundation of our platform is that how can we create spaces that all diverse young people can engage. So if you look at the statistics, for example, I already graduated from the university, and then actually I'm still doing my master. But in fact, that's very limited number of young people in Japan. If you compare with the world, it's going to be much, much small amount of young people have that opportunity to do that. That is because of social issues, economical issues, and so on. So the key principle for Japan Youth Platform for Sustainability, we call JIPS, to establish is that how can we provide inclusive, democratic, and legitimate spaces for all the young people who live in Japan, not only Japanese, but who are in Japan to engage in the decision-making happening at national and the international level. But not only that, I think the role of Japanese young people is not limited to about us, because we are part of the global young youth community, which have so much more struggle in our daily life. So I'm not sure how many people know about Sustainable Development Goals. You know Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. Great. Not so many, so let me explain very briefly what that is. The SDGs is one of the most important framework in the United Nations to guide the next 15 years until 2030, how we're going to develop to make sure that no one left behind. The key pillar of this is not only about global south, but also global north. And then try to overcome that just, development is about developing country issues, but also developed country issues as well. So in this respect, we have a kind of collective obligation and a collective duty as, based on principle of solidarity, to work with international young people to achieve the sustainable development everywhere for everybody. But current trend in the United Nations, not only United Nations, but also in Japan, are not so positive, I would say. Why Japan succeeded, in my opinion, is the way in which we organize ourselves and kind of prioritize society and the community as the center of the development, rather than individual company, individual entity, etc. So as you know, Japan, not recently, but Japan has been one of the most equal society in terms of inequality, income gaps. If you compare with other OECD countries, this trend is absolutely clear. And then it was, kind of with Sweden and then Denmark or the Nordic countries who followed that too. But as I think some of you may already heard the Paradise document. That is the second part of the Panama paper. That shows how much the greedy multinational corporates exploit the national sovereignty and the capacity of the state to avoid a tax and then pretend to be innovator. This is absolutely disgusting trend that's happening in the world that undermines engagement in the people as well. So let me link these two issues. There's one thing, individualizations and vast inequality. These two fundamental issues are the one, hinder the global community from achieving sustainable development. Individualizations is about cherry-picking young people to speak up, to echo the established positions. Even in the United Nations, even some government pick just young people, say they are the representative young people. That is happening everywhere, like including Japan. But for example, if they have PhD, they are already part of the establishment. How can that person speak for those who even do not have an internet? We have internet, Wi-Fi here, this is very good, which I really like it. But if you think about it, it's a privilege. Individualizations is about to personalize kind of issues that young people face. So we all know that inspiration coming from personal experience, which I agree, individual can change the world. But matter of fact, they are not alone. They have a family, they have a community, they have the state, the support, their education, healthcare. Some countries do not, but many do as well. So it is wrong way to say that person is amazing, he achieved, she achieved that, because there is a condition and environment that we live in, how can we make sure those aspects are highlighted as well? But this challenge to make sure that we do not highlight individual as individual, but we highlight those issues as issues and then try to address the issues rather than say, oh, you need to be innovator to change, to get the money out of this, greedy capitalist market. It's very hard because there's a vast inequality that's growing. It further hinders the young people from working together. How can we make sure that young people from everywhere kind of create collective solidarity-based movement against such a domination, international oligarchy via the multinational corporation and extreme rich to dominate our politics? And how can we bring it back to our domain? That's, I think, kind of key issue as Japanese young people who are fighting within Japan, but also across the countries, together with all African, Latino, or European, or other young people. I think one thing I have as a principle in terms of how we work with the all young people at national level and international level, that is collectivism. We need to revitalize the collective engagement of young people in decision making. In Japan, we do not have that strong collective engagement in the decision making because sometimes, I'm not picking up any particular ministry of government, but just saying that they just pick young people as a speaker, say, oh, they are the representative. But in fact, they are not. Are they accountable to the young people? Because everybody complains that politicians are not accountable to the people. Sure, but also you need to hold the people who are speaking on behalf of you accountable as well. So we need to kind of create the collective spaces that has accountability, democracy, and the legitimacy that's speaking for young people. And that principle of collectivism and solidarity is something we need to think about and to talk about it. In my daily based struggle for the better engagement spaces, better use spaces in the decision making, we see this is as our missions, especially in the Japan Youth Platform for Sustainability and the United Nations Major Group for Children Youth, which is offshore platform for young people to engage in the United Nations for the decision making, such as SDG. We were part of the decision making.
Now,
we are trying to make sure that how we can achieve this principle in our daily life.
والآن نتوجه إلى السيد
to the artist Rahul Khan from India. You as an actor and a young person in the Indian theater, let us agree together that art formulates all over the world a soft power represented in all arts. Either these are related to the cinema, to the theater, to the music, to formative art, to dancing, whatever. In all its forms, art is a soft, effective power that is invested through the idea that it assists in confronting different challenges. The Indian experience has its own peculiarities in art, either in the cinema or in art, generally speaking. Can you speak about this Indian experience in arts, as it has the privileged and has advanced greatly lately in confronting different challenges? You have the floor, sir.
First of all, on behalf of all the fellow Indian citizens, I would like to thank you. Well, I have a journey of experiences. Well, it all started, I was a backbencher in school. Then I played cricket to the national level for my country. Then after that, I engaged in a business. And then after that, I joined army for 6 months. Then after that, I came to in the theater fraternity. Then at the time I came to theater fraternity, the definition of youth that was there in my mind, and I've just tackled it in 4-5 lines. An existence of body with a friend called soul. A character of today daring to achieve his goal. A man of present who does have his past, but always going ahead, sometimes slow, sometimes fast. A mate of himself in the life full of swings, but with an imperious desire to fly on my wings. A dream of tomorrow always in mind, with a strong belief in heart that tomorrow never dies. And this is what an individual thinks, and so do I. But the day I joined theater, I just had a question in my mind, but what exactly I was doing before? For me, acting is not doing in a cinema hall or anything. For me, to act is to aware and is to speak. Well, I have 2-3 experiences. If I'll not speak, I don't want to criticize my country, but if I'll say lie, that'll be not done from my part. We do a lot of street theater, and when I speak about street theater is not very popular around the world. But in India, a street theater is like a bunch of 40, 50 actors at one time. They take one issues, for example, atrocities on women, because it's one of the biggest issues in front of our country, and we are trying to fight it and eradicate from the roots. When we take this performance out, we do it, and you'll not believe 99% of the females who wants to speak but who can't speak because of our society, they come to us after the play and they speak to us. And I just want to share 2 stories with you. There was a girl called Lakshmi. Now Lakshmi, in the year 2011 and 2012, the busiest metro station in New Delhi, the capital of India, she was there, and a boy was in love with him, or a relationship at one side with her, but she said no. And at the time that she said no, 2 boys came and they threw acid on her at the spot where around 500 to 700 to 1,000 individuals were there, and not a single one went there and they helped her. Then what's the use of giving the tag of ourselves to youth? And just after that, she went to hospital. Her face is all gone, her identity is all gone, and I mean, this is not the end. What our society is doing there, yes, girls are getting harassed, yes, they are getting traumatized, yes, they are getting raped, but what after that? The one who is doing all this is all free with the police and everybody. But where are the girls? They are not in the school, they are not studying, they are not in the banks doing jobs, and they're not anywhere. I mean, only 1%, and I'll give an hats off to ma'am, who just said her entire story. It is one of the most difficult thing to have in front of so many people. I talked to her, and she just said that I will not live a dead life. I'm alive, and I'll go to every single educational institute. I will go everywhere, and I'll see how can a woman can be traumatized like this. So just after that, the government and everybody and a lot of individuals are coming and they are working for that. And not only her, the most traumatized situation, I have a niece. She is 5 years old. You'll not believe. Just a newborn baby of 2.5 months, just a year back, and she got raped in the hospital. So when I say this, I again, yes, we have problems everywhere, but someone needs to stand and someone needs to talk, and the change will come. And after that, then I just lift everything, my modeling, my cricket, my everything. From the last 15 years, I'm just in a thought that what exactly I can do as an individual. We had theater. As an actor, I have the power to communicate. I have the power to communicate to people about the different issues of our society, not only from India, about all over the world. We made one team. We gave that tag called education through theater. And we gave that theater for society, and theater for awareness, and theater for change. And now, every single day, right from 6 o'clock to 12 o'clock, we are professional 500 actors, doctors, engineers, teachers, school-going kids, college students, they all are coming. We are rehearsing for one issue. We are taking that outside, and we are trying to perform as many street theater performances as we can. And just after every single street play that Mahatma Gandhi has said, be the change you want to see in the world. After every single play, we tell the audience that you are the change and you have to be the change in the world. You have to speak. It's like that. Yes, you'll not recognize each and every dialogue of the play, but you will recognize what exactly you are speaking after the play, because you have all suffered entire your life. Now this is your platform to speak and to come. The one thing that I gained from this, after all the 13 years of more than 50,000 performances in that 13 years, I can say, not for money, not for anything, the one thing that we need to work on, that is, let's change the mindset. Yes, change will come. If after one performance I can change the mindset of one individual, then my work is all done. Thank you.
Thank you. والآن نذهب إلى السيد مارك داسك، رئيس قسم الشرق الأوسط وشمال إفريقيا وعضو اللجنة التنفيذية بالمنتدى الاقتصادي العالمي. هناك ما يعرف بالمسؤولية الاجتماعية والمسؤولية المجتمعية للمؤسسات الاقتصادية الكبرى. إذن
institutions. What are the role of such institutions in supporting the youth? I would like to express my greetings from the executive manager of the World Economic Forum.
Of peace. I represent the World Economic Forum, an international organization that is based in Geneva but has global activities and global impact. And while we tend to still grab headlines through our gathering in Davos every January, we do work throughout the year, long-term, based on communities. So, Madam, you mentioned the role of private sector organizations and organizations overall and how they can work with young people. So if you look at our communities, there are three basic communities. There is the community of young people, there is the community of political leaders, and there is a community of business leaders. And they all work together on issues that are important to the World Economic Forum and to the mission of the World Economic Forum, which is improving the state of the world. So it may sound naive, but this is something that has driven this organization since 1971, and we take that very, very seriously. I mentioned as the first community the young community. Well, this is for us an instrumental community for us to be able to really focus on what is the future and how can we really be very future oriented. We have two sub-communities. One is what we call the Global Shapers community, which is also present here in Egypt in 4 hubs. Overall, we have 300 hubs around, or over 300 hubs around the world, over 6,000 people. And what they do, they are young people under the age of 30 that really believe in the mission of the World Economic Forum, then they want to make a difference, and they work both in their local community but also on global issues. So that's one. And the other one is a community of young global leaders who are outstanding individuals under the age of 40. Since we have, now I think I have 6 minutes, let me talk about one big thing that has completely remade the World Economic Forum, and it's actually stemming very heavily from the engagement of young people in our work. We call that the Fourth Industrial Revolution. It is based on a concept and a book by Professor Schwab that was published 2 years ago. And what do we mean? Well, we think that rather than us reading now every day in newspapers that here there is an amazing new technology, tomorrow there is another one, almost every day now you can read about an incremental improvement, and usually it has to do with some kind of technology. Well, we believe that this is not just an extension of the internet age that many people think started in the 80s and then continued, of course, in the 90s and the 2000s. We think this is a new era that is characterized crucially by the fusion of these technologies that are really being developed at groundbreaking speed, but the fusion of these technologies with the physical world and with the biological world. And frankly, it's like a tsunami. It's like something that is very hard to catch up with. And what we want to make sure of is that people are not passive about this, because really, if you read this every day, if you are confronted with these developments every day, it could lead to a backlash. It could lead to people closing down, not being able to really open to this, being hostile to this. It could lead to further societal divisions, polarization, and fractioning. For us, why we are putting the Fourth Industrial Revolution at the forefront of our work, because we believe that humanity needs to be on the front foot in shaping our future that is going to be more informed by technology, but it needs to be human-centric. So that's the crucial part, that we do not look only at the technologies that are amazing and we all use them, and I am personally very taken by them, but we look at what are the societal implications of those technologies, and we enable as many people as possible around the world to understand the implications, and again, being on the front foot of shaping them. And what do we do practically? Well, we do believe in dialogue, and so we are inviting and working with top experts around technology, but also people around ethics, values, from all walks of life, to really think through those societal implications. But because this is such a big issue, we established a new center in San Francisco last year that looks specifically at how do you regulate these technologies, because we believe that there is a mismatch between the pace of the development of those technologies and how governments and societies respond. We see it all around the world with how for example, municipalities are reacting to shared mobility, Uber and the like, on different continents. So how can we really create a better partnership between the public and the private in developing these technologies so that they really are good for humanity, they do not lead to societal backlash or further polarization. So that's one thing. Well, you could also say, well, now we're saying, okay, this is the digital world. We are all digitally enabled, and if we do it right, there are all these opportunities for young people to get more jobs, become entrepreneurs, to get more information, get more transparency. That's all fine. But as we get more people online, as more and more people are also digitally present. We need to make sure that this is a secure environment. And so this is the flip side of our world today, that we see all around us now, the cyber dimension and cybersecurity dimension of this opportunity. And so the World Economic Forum is also reacting to this, and we are looking at how the private sector and the public sector can work better together in really protecting the cyberspace and making sure that the digital economy and the digital opportunity that we believe is there is better protected. Let me just, in conclusion, let me just bring it to the region. I'm ultimately responsible for our work in the Middle East and North Africa. I come to Egypt a lot. And so I'd love to mention to you that this is hugely, hugely important, the opportunity particularly to all economies, including the Arab world. We did a little bit of an experiment or a test this past spring. We partnered with the International Finance Corporation, and we selected, together with top people in the venture capital world, including some people from Egypt, we selected the 100, what we called fourth industrial revolution startups in the Arab world. And I have to say, I didn't know what we were going to get, but I think what we got was a completely surprising, positive surprise, where basically when we talk about the fourth industrial revolution, sometimes people say this is the future, this is the theory, it's not happening to us. Well, I can tell you, based on what I've seen with the startups in the Arab world, the future has arrived.
عذرا للمقاطعة ولكن يشرفنا الآن ب
honored now by the President of His Excellency, Mr. Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, the President of Egypt. Our greetings to you, Your Excellency, and we are talking now in this session about the challenges as well as the issues that face the young people of the world. The panelists have shed light on the various angles of such issues and challenges, whether in the African continent, via Chad in particular, and as well as other countries such as India and Japan and Iraq and Switzerland. And we shall continue on with the discussion by shedding light on the experiences that face many challenges worldwide. Allow me now, Your Excellency, to pose this question to you, this one on the Egyptian experience. No one may differ that Egypt is facing quite many challenges, but the most important ones are the wars that are waged with some elements that do not only target the destruction of security, but that also target undermining the morale of the Egyptian young people, and to shake their confidence and their trust in the state institutions. What about the efforts of Egypt in this regard in particular? In the name of God, most gracious, most beneficent, first of all, I would like to welcome His Excellency President Idris, our dear guest, and his presence with us in this conference, and all the guests. The experience of Egypt you are discussing a very critical topic, and I do not want, but I shall talk about our approach, the Egyptian approach, or its vision on this topic on unemployment and illiteracy and ignorance. And I want to say that these are the problems which, when we present an experience such as the experience of any of the advanced countries or the developed countries, where there are representatives of such countries who are speaking about their own experiences, they do not touch upon the problems or they do not face the problems that we face. They do have a population growth that is balanced, if not even on the negative. They do not have a flow that is being added to the labor market as we have in our country. The number of newly entrants into labor, they have a balanced population growth. They have programs that are integrated and that are stable over many years. And as such, the approach that I want to use regarding the experience of Egypt is that, first of all, we need to know when we are different. I do not mean here, nor that I want to say that beyond doubt we do here, but we need to understand in Egypt, for example, and I shall speak about my country, so as not to have any form of abuse to anyone. When I have a 2.5 million every year of this flow, the 2.5 million means that they need to have a good educational opportunity. They need to have a good job opportunity, one that is good. Also a good chance for life in Egypt. I wonder, this growth, and by the way, in Egypt and over the last 50 years, so as not to be unfair to this experience, this is something that stands as an obstacle in front of progress and the improvement of the status of people in reality, concretely. And people cannot understand that such a population growth can undermine all the efforts exerted by the state, because population growth like this, in order to achieve with it some sense of a good income or a good life, the income or the gross income should not be less, as a growth rate should not be less than 7.5 and above. Not less than 7.5. I wonder as to whether we have achieved this growth over the last years. I believe that the growth rate in Egypt is at its best, has reached 7, if this is a real figure. What this means that the Egyptian citizen over the last 50 years has not felt that his income is increasing in a way that is commensurate to the living situations. He always feels that his income with the circumstances of life is not improving. And this is a reality. But when I tell him that one of the reasons or one of the causes of this is not the inability of the government or the state, no, there are other causes, and there should be a community participation or an understanding on the part of the community and cooperation on the part of the community so as to control the situation. If we can control the situation, this will be because this is one of the elements of the problem that we face in Egypt. If you are talking about only ignorance and illiteracy, or if you're talking about unemployment, imagine, or you can imagine, all of you, those who can hear me here, one real job opportunity that would cost from 100,000 pounds to 1 million. The figures are always give us a real opportunity to learn. They are usually clear, and hence the figures are indicative when I tell you that in order to create a real job opportunity in Egypt for any citizen or any young man or woman in Egypt, you are talking from 100,000 to 1 million Egyptian pounds. If we say 100,000 Egyptian pounds, this is the lower figure. What is the million then? Then 100 billion. Can I pump this figure every year to cover 1 million citizens, and no, not 2.5 million? The labor market receives between 700 to 1 million per year. Then I need to pump investments at the least by 100 million pounds per year so as to create a job opportunity to this citizen or to this young man or woman. Is this achieved? No, it is not. No, it is not. And hence, the young man senses, or the young woman who is sitting at home or anywhere else, feels that the government and the state are not paying attention to him. No. And this is not political talk, by the way, which is why I'm surprised from the coverage of our issues as I speak before all the youth of the world. This coverage, which is not based on real science, on real facts or real knowledge, is one that is detrimental more than it is beneficial. It is an ignorant coverage of the issues. It is detrimental and may destroy the countries more than it can assist countries. I'm telling you today, who today in a country such as Egypt that combats terrorism over 4 years, and before them 3 years, in a country that is boiling and that is unstable since 2011 until today. These people, they need by the end of the day to have food and to drink, and those who enter the oil station, they need to get fuel and to drive their cars, and they need to get on the train and to get to their destination. How can this be achieved in a country where we need 100 million? You are combating terrorism. You want to achieve good education. You want to achieve good health. At what cost? At what price? And from where? From where can we get those figures? And I'm very happy that we have guests from other countries who can hear our story, the story of our nation and other nations like us. I shall not talk while His Excellency, the President of Chad, is present with us. He is President Idris. He is telling me I have, for every citizen, that is, if I remember the figure, more than, in Chad, that is, more than one head for every citizen, but he cannot get me this in Egypt when I do need it. Why? Because they are a country that has borders. They do not have seaports, and they do not have direct ports with us, which is why I said from yesterday, if we can have lines and networks that can combine the various parts of the continent and railways, the African continent would have changed without external assistance over 10 years. Let me go back and speak about Egypt. So I want to say, when you talk about creation of job opportunities in Egypt, for this size, if you can pump 100 billion this year or next year, and what about the next year and the following year? Are there markets that can bear this capacity of work within and out of Egypt? Are there markets that can bear to have industries that can compete? Countries that have preceded us, so that when I pump these funds in investments in the industry in Egypt, shall we be the market, the international market? Will we be assimilated or not? The issue is very complicated and is full of many, many elements, and we need to stop at that. And by the way, this should not frustrate us. No. If this would frustrate us, we would not have been developing in Egypt as we are. But what I want to say, that these actions, despite its magnitude and its intensity and its depth, shall not be sufficient. So I'm saying that so that you can, in order to create good education for 22 million, and also the figures are always ones that are highly revealing and clear. So I understand from what you said, Your Excellency, that the most important challenges that Egypt faces today is unemployment, no population growth. And that's true, unemployment. From where does unemployment stem? From which is the size of the labor that enter the labor market are less than our capacity to offer real job opportunities. Why is that? This is not the case in countries such as Sweden or Switzerland or France or even Japan, because the population number is rather stable over many years there. The birth rates are equal to the death rates, if not less, and hence and they can respond to me, because I cannot speak about them more than they can, and they can respond, and they can tell me what you're saying is not correct. We have birth rates at this like your own, but we can create these job opportunities. But why are there struggles in the world? And why are they acting? All the major presidents of the world, what are they after in order that can create job opportunities for the young people and for their citizens, to create amenities for their, and we can all see the situation in the world. This is how it is based, which is that every president is responsible for a country, whether it's a small country or not. They are mainly concerned with the creation of luxury to their people, and for that purpose there is a lot that is done in the world, and the whole world is acting like this and is in a collision, and the interests are based on such things. Let me go back and speak about Egypt. You are talking about unemployment, and I'm talking about population growth. And population growth is an issue that no one has been able to address appropriately, because it's a community question, and the efforts of the state shall not be sufficient. It needs a conviction on the part of the people. 2 and only, for example, would be sufficient as children. You are telling me that many people, as they speak, they say, I have 4 children, I cannot feed them. I hope that this would not be painful. In other countries, they do not think of children, not so as to feed them, and but because they can able to offer real care for them and to act as real parents and good parents and full-fledged parents towards such children. It's not a matter of feeding them. It is a matter of whether they will be able to offer care to them, to pay attention to them, to offer them whatever is necessary, and not only food and water. We have confined it to feeding them, and despite the fact that we as a family we cannot spend on 4, yet we do give birth to 4 children. But today we have to stop and say, can I be able not only to feed 4, but can I offer care to 4? Can I speak with each of my children and give them the appropriate time for that, so as to contribute to building their personalities so that they can become good citizens? Or do I need to have 10 as a number? And they are in just a number of children. We do not need just numbers. We need a highly educated person, a highly respectable person. So as not to talk at more length, excuse me, you have to know that the mother who works in Egypt or the father that works in Egypt how much chance shall they get so as to offer care for their children? How can they care for them? How can they talk to their children? Otherwise, they will become something very different. The community always used to assume a role in bringing up their children, but this is receding, and hence I fear that there would be some kind of fragmentation and of our values and ethics and principles as a result of this receding role. So the main thought in population growth, if I made this one of the main elements of the problem, it is one of the main elements of the problem, but it is not. It's not only population growth, but today, and this is another issue, when there is someone who is targeting the Egyptian state for other reasons whatsoever. And this targeting, leads to targeting tourism as one of the main important sources of national income in Egypt. That's true. When they target that over 7 years. So that the young man or woman from Japan would not come to Egypt, and those from Europe would also not come to Egypt. They would come here, and when they come to Egypt, they would find security, peace, and stability, and then they would enjoy their presence, and so that we also, from this income, to contribute to building our own nation. When someone targets tourism over 7 years, and by the way, I want to tell you, the most critical of all issues that faces the whole world, so that you may know. And I'm saying that so that history can write about that. It is the issue that destroys the whole world and the entire nations and the future. It is terrorism. In Egypt, and over every time when the rates of tourism in Egypt were advancing and were increasing and would achieve a good income for Egypt, tourism would become then targeted. Egypt is targeted in Egypt. Today your income was 14 or 15 billion, less or more, then tourism would be hit and would get us back to zero. And then the investors who has had investments in tourism sector, they have citizens who are working there. What would they do then? They would either lay them off or give them lower pays, and then they would bear in debts with the banks, or that they can lay them off completely, which would stand as an obstacle or impede the tourism industry in Egypt. So those who target Egypt are targeting, and this is something that you as Egyptians should pay attention to. You should not stand up again on your feet, and whenever you stand up on your feet, we will break your feet. We will do that by getting you to face a major problem, a major formula. If you are silent, you will not advance, and when you do take steps forward, we will break you, and this is the whole thing. This needs insistence and struggle on the part of Egypt as a government and people, which is why I'm telling all the Egyptians, you are performing a wonderful battle, and I'm not flattering you, and I would like that all the guests can hear that, those who have come here. You hear about us that we are people against human rights. We hear about us that we are dictators. No. We are a nation that wants to live on, as you are living. We do respect our people, we love our people, and we want that the people would lead its own country, but you, not you, others, do not want this nation to live. Which is why I'm saying that extremism is a weapon that is used in destroying nations and countries, and it destroys us, but it will destroy the others as well. It will be a monster. It is used to destroy nations, but it will grow and will become monstrous to the extent that it will not get anyone, will not leave anyone. And believe me, over my entire life, I've spent my entire life in studying this issue.
I hope I did not expand, but I told you it's not only unemployment or population growth targeting the state of Egypt to be unable to fulfill the needs of its people. Once this is true, then the people would move and would destroy the country and demolish it, and then we would enter a new vicious circle of demolition and reconstruction, because I'm not able to fulfill the legitimate needs of my people. So I believe that youth fora and talking to people and being transparent and honest in my talk, this is the only means of confronting all those who try to demolish and destroy the state of Egypt, who extremists, certain terrorist groups, but then the people of Egypt stand up to their country. They would protect their own nation. It's not within the ability or capacity of the president, police or military, but only the people of Egypt. That's why when we adopted the economic measures, I hinged upon the awareness of the people of Egypt, and the cabinet was against me. They disapproved such measures. They tried to refrain, to discourage me. If we remain silent, we get lost. This is the whole issue. This is the formula. If we proceed forward, you're rather unpleased. And when you go forward and there's some sort of chaos, then there will be demolition of the country. If we don't proceed forward, then we would really remain, disabled, and then finally, eventually, still we would destroy the country. In all cases, stand still, don't move forward. No, No, we are going to move forward, and I firmly believe and ask my colleagues that contrary to all expectations, I really have confidence. I'm confident about the awareness and the intelligence of the people of Egypt. The issue is not just confined to population growth or unemployment. This is the outcome of numerous challenges that we have to combine together. However, any nation, any people can surmount the challenges if there is disclosure, transparency, and ongoing communication between the leadership and the people. Some people would say, we're not supposed to disclose anything about national security. No, I would disclose everything as much as possible to the people of Egypt. These are the challenges. Would you like to move forward or stand still? I don't want you to be behind me. Egyptians, you have to be in front of me, not behind me. A few days ago, my colleagues were discussing the education and the experience of Japan in the presence of Japanese elements. Personally, I fully appreciate the Japanese and Germans. This does not mean that other nationalities are not appreciated, but I have special appreciation for the peoples of Japan and Germany. So I believe that the Japanese experience education will be of benefit of us, and they were willing to help. For the success of any experience, perhaps this is off context, but allow me to discuss this. You posed the question right on the moment I entered the meeting room. I asked my colleagues, do we have factors that would make this experience a success? After 6 or 7 years from now, it wouldn't be a success. So they would say, well, this was upon the request of the former president of Egypt, Sisi, but nothing was done. No. I would work on this experience until it becomes a success. We're going to form committees in order to sort out families, to add to the factors of success. So we have to select the families, the educational level, so that the son or daughter who joins school would secure further success of this experience. So when we start in this way, together with the Japanese experience, then we'd have more success factors, and then this would give momentum to the whole process, even in our absence. Then they would say that the Japanese schools are successful because the foundation was strong, not just the form, its form and content. Sorry for expanding. Thank you. In view of all these challenges, let's agree that they may be resolved and surmounted if the perseverance and patience of people. This voice of the youth on the panel, especially concerning the first pivot that you have mentioned in your intervention, Excellency the President, mainly the disproportionate relation between population and unemployment. Dr. Gamal Said, he's an assistant professor at Department of Accounting, Faculty of Commerce, Zakazaki University. He had his own strategy and some suggestions that pertain to defying these challenges, namely the population and its negative impact on unemployment. What about this strategy and the suggested or proposed solutions? At the outset, I'd like to welcome His Excellency the President. The President has summed up everything, so I don't know what to say. The issue of unemployment is one of the main challenges that the whole world has to defy. If we examine the situation worldwide, we find the number of unemployed youth, 75 million youth worldwide, which is a remarkable figure. The annual cost is $150 billion, whereas the development assistance allocated to realize the SDGs by 2030 do not exceed $132 billion. The unemployment cost for the world, $150 billion. The phantom of unemployment, if you consider any issue worldwide, including terrorism, as His Excellency the President has mentioned, and the illegal migration, we'd find a youth who is unemployed, who feels desperate, he lost his identity. Some groups were able to utilize his despair in order to realize its own goals. 61% of the youth worldwide are confident in the ability of their governments to defy unemployment. Other governments worldwide don't try to defy this challenge. There are serious endeavors in this respect. In Egypt, we have a live example. Are there obstacles and hurdles? Yes. First, the demographic transformation, which is the ongoing increase in population in an imbalanced, unequal rates. Secondly, the financial economic potentialities and capacities. This is a hurdle before the government comes to defying the challenge of unemployment. 3, the economic crises worldwide that led to shortage in supply of labor supply. Number 4, I quote His Excellency the President, issue of terrorism that curbs the performance of any government and does not help to implement any of its strategies. I have a suggested strategy through the different scientific research in the field of defying unemployment or economic empowerment of youth in general. It falls in 4 main pillars. In Egypt, thanks God, we were able to adopt well-defined measures in the 4th pivot or axis. The first, dissemination of the culture of entrepreneurship. We have to fully disseminate this culture. We have to encourage youth to be innovative, to start their own businesses. We have to support them throughout, support the self-confidence, and reduce the risk they may face with respect to entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship relates to huge risks. There is a surprise with respect to defying unemployment. While some businessmen would say, we have many jobs, but we don't have qualified youth or skilled youth, then we'd go back to the gap between the outcomes of educational process and the labor market. Each country needs an integrated database for the available job opportunities and future job opportunities through the studies in order to, given the technological advancement, there will be future job opportunities. Perhaps we are oblivious of at present. Perhaps we have existing job opportunities that wouldn't have any role in the future. So we need an integrated database for present and potential future job opportunities. And we relate this with the educational process. We start with practical. Education is supposed to start with real life situation and ends with the reality. We have to start with the basic education and university education. We have to include curricula that would encourage youth to develop skills of sound thinking, innovation, and how to become an entrepreneur, how to take risk, and to entrench a feeling of confidence, the ability to innovate, able to challenge. The role of media and private sector is of paramount importance. However, it's negligible. It's overlooked, or perhaps they don't undertake the appropriate role. The private sector, civil society organizations have to contribute hand in hand with the government to disseminate the culture of entrepreneurship. They have to support the initiatives that would encourage youth and develop their skills and make them employable. So the private sector, CSOs, media as well, is supposed to take part in disseminating the culture of entrepreneurship and relevant behaviors like self-confidence, learning from mistakes. This with respect to the first pivot, dissemination and education of culture of entrepreneurship. Egypt, we have an initiative, $200 billion for support of SMEs with interest of 5% declining interest. The second pivot, countries have to expand in investment in infrastructure. All economic studies in this area states that developing countries have to expand investment in infrastructure, building new urban communities, because this pivot provides job opportunities, numerous and increases production rates as well as development of other sectors. On reality, on the ground, how is this feasible despite these challenges? Well, not only the discussion does not only pertain to Egypt, but all developing countries. I'm speaking in general, most world countries, all countries have to harness the available resources to expand in investment infrastructure and development of new urban communities. This pivot provides job opportunities and shall help in defying unemployment. There is a key point. Any country that expands in investment infrastructure shall have an integrated program for the management of assets of the infrastructure in order to enumerate all assets pertaining to infrastructure and good use to ensure sustainability and delivery to the coming generations in an appropriate manner, as well as realize handsome return in order to cover part of the investment. Third pivot, we have to promote technical and vocational education. Media plays a pivotal role in trying to promote the image concerning this type of education. We're not supposed to consider the technician as a second-class citizen, and we have to establish technical and vocational schools in the new industrial zones so that the learning there will be a combination between study and practical issue, so there will be no gap between the outcome of educational process and labor market. The last pivot, the state shall encourage national programs and initiatives where there will be use of natural and human resources instead of instead of becoming an economic subordinate, instead of relying on others to develop your own natural and human resources. We have to be dependent on ourselves to develop this. The best example is the program I'm part of, PLP, Presidential Leadership Program. It's one of the best initiatives in Egypt from my own perspective. And the initiative of technology entrepreneurs, and there was the initiative of 1 million Arab entrepreneurs that was launched in UAE. Dr. Gamal, you had mentioned in your intervention to the role of media, with respect to entrepreneurship or in general, concerning the challenges that Egypt faces. The best to answer this issue, Dr. Dina Mahmoud Hamid, assistant lecturer at Mass Comm Department at Asyut University. The role of media institutions in facing such challenges and to respond to the points that Dr. Gamal had mentioned in his interventions. At the outset, I'd like to thank Excellency President and the participants. I'm pleased to attend as a representative of the Egyptian youth in this forum. I'd like to refer that The mass media are not only responsible for raising awareness of youth of its own issues and community issues. There is a key concept which is mass illiteracy, similar to other forms of literacy. Many countries are talking about media literacy or media education, which is an ongoing process starting from childhood, adolescence, and youth, because raising awareness is only through one institutional step, but through the collaborative efforts of different institutions, starting with the family. We find out that households or families with the technological development, there are smartphones in the hands of children provided with internet services. However, the parents do not raise awareness of the children with respect of use of how to access information. So lack of awareness of trying to deal with mass media, this is media literacy. So we receive the information without trying to scrutinize its credibility, validate or analyze such information. We cannot discard the role of educational institutions like schools and universities. They have to undertake the role raising awareness of youth with respect to dealing with mass media. If we talk about mass media, they're supposed to observe the professional criteria in covering events. Many, give preponderance to the scoop at the expense of credibility. And this was the mistake of many news agencies. This is not only detrimental to the awareness, individual awareness, it may impact the economies of countries. Furthermore, there is a point that pertains to the media men, the confusion between opinion and news item. Many of them do not provide information, but only their own personal perspectives, and they direct the public opinion towards a certain direction instead of objective presentation of information. Monitoring issues, this is no tool, but what's more important is the mechanism of confronting and resolving the issue. How is this feasible? Through two main elements. First, as I have previously mentioned, the media education, culture of awareness. Yes, awareness is developed through an ongoing process. Secondly, there are the agencies to regulate media profession. You have the Supreme Council for Media that plays a role in setting controls and professional criteria for media performance. We have to differentiate between two issues. I'd like to interrupt you. There are those who claim that these controls and pivots, perhaps this may suppress the freedom of media and press. How would you answer this? There is a great difference between control and regulating media profession. Censorship is different from regulations. So preventive measures have to be taken. Censorship, as if you have an article in a paper and we try to cut it down. But right from the beginning, we say there are certain regulations and an agency that would mount a performance. This is common in all democracies and countries worldwide, to regulate the media profession, because these institutions are assigned to set the professional rules and regulations. In the absence of these agencies, there would be some sort of a media mess and chaos. With the social media and the internet, the media tools are available to all, not just individuals, even institutions and terrorist groups. So all have access to these tools. I'll go back to your first question. Awareness would be through the public, to educate them how to deal with the mass media, how to access the information, filter the information, validate its credibility. On the other hand, with respect to the mass media, we would talk about media regulatory agencies. Thank you. Before we conclude the first part of this session, we would like to listen to the comment of His Excellency Idriss Déby, the President of Chad. Sir, you have the floor. Thank you. Thank you for this. Thank you. I have listened attentively to the intervention of my brother, President Sisi. The issue that Egypt faces with respect to demographic growth is a common issue in Africa, as is the case in Chad. We have a population rate increase of 4%. Perhaps it may be higher to other countries, but it's a universal global issue. A decade ago, the population growth was more than 100 million. Now we are talking about 1 billion. It's hard in our... This is totally difficult in our continent with limited job opportunities, as well as limited educational opportunities. So we cannot provide job opportunities for all youth. And in order to provide education that would enable the youth to have job opportunities, it's rather hard to materialize. In fact, there are structural problems at the level of all African countries. When we talk about Chad, when I talk about my country, Chad, the issue of unemployment. Chad is a small country. There's 15 million of the population. There is a great number of youth who are rather educated, but there are those who have access to education and others who didn't have a chance to have access to education. So we have groups of youth who have access to education. I believe that this applies to other African countries. Many of the youth are desperate. They ask, what can we do in order to provide opportunity to the African youth to have more hope with respect to their countries? Then there is the main issue concerning lack of security and terrorism. This is one of the means through which the students may be polarized, especially unemployed students or those who didn't have access to education in the first place. It's a time-fused bomb that may explode at any time in Africa. The issue does not only pertain to African, but the awareness of youth, how far they are aware of their own responsibility. The solution is not violence, and it's not through migrating to other countries. The solution is always to take into account the risks that the state faces and to face the different issues and consider the challenges that Africa faces. It's inevitable to go back to history. Youth. Egypt has an old history Each country has civilization cultures that go back to thousands of years. You have a history of colonialism, and we have countries that don't have any cultural civilizational base. There are some countries that have 10% of the population have electricity connections. We are fully aware of our problems, try to spare no effort in this respect. However, on ground, does the continent lack resources? No, we have resources, and I believe one of the panelists mentioned that how can we increase the value of these resources in Africa? This is supposed to be through Africans themselves. No one would be able and no one would be there to help us to move towards industry and manufacturing. At least at the moment, all are satisfied to explore raw materials in Africa and to use it as a market for consumption. This is the real life situation, the current situation. It's the responsibility of all leaders to address this issue. I believe that there is no impossible. However, we can't find individual leader who's able to address this animosity and hatred that was persistent again in our continent against it. No sole leader can be accountable for this. Responsibility is the responsibility of all Africans at all levels. African people are in charge of their own destiny, and we are not to allow usurping these resources that are resources for all. The trade in Africa is less than 2%. The inter-trade is less than 2%. If Egypt, for instance, at present has a surplus in food, stuff, or raw materials, perhaps wheat or sugar, for instance, we, Chad, we don't have access to these goods because we don't have an infrastructure for transportation. Even the neighboring countries like the Sudan, Niger, and Cameroon, the only country that we can trade with is Cameroon. Only Cameroon. Out of all African countries, other Arab African countries have the same problem. You have to resolve the issue of transport. The second point, manufacturing, in order to provide job opportunities and create resources within the continent, so as not to continue consumption of imported products. The consumption of African products is supposed to be within Africa. I believe that this may enable us to face this challenge. And this is the struggle we have to undertake. All Africans have. I combat, as a country, we combat terrorism. African countries have to fight terrorism. As long as we fight terrorism, we are being, associated with dictatorship. It's the responsibility of leaders. Then we cannot do the same. We are different. And then they say that we are not competent in this respect. We have a responsibility to fully shoulder. Even if we are called dictators, what's really important that our people would appreciate what we do and they would be in our back. I believe that in all countries the people is with us. As President Sisi has mentioned, we don't want to be in front of you and you are behind us. We need the people to be in front of us, not behind us. And I believe this is of paramount importance with respect fighting terrorism fighting terrorism would help us to reach a result. But we need solidarity among all African countries to fight the phantom of terrorism and to face the deep challenges that we all know and that curb the development of our continent and creates what we call at present the illegal migrants to Europe. 90% of them are from countries that are at war and subject to internal conflict. If the continent is not able to resolve these issues that pertain to security and stability in order to earmark its direct its efforts to development, need solidarity in economic integration and markets at the regional level and continental level, and to increase trade exchange among African countries as well as development of infrastructure. We are not to use a hard currency that is not available to import. The inter-Africa trade exchange could be through the local currency. So increase of trade exchange among African countries, which necessitates the development of infrastructure, appropriate infrastructure, as well as education. These are the key elements. Through education, we wouldn't only have the teachers and the infrastructure. The education starts from the house. The father and mother are supposed to be the two main elements who befriend their child and educate him or her, putting him or her on the right path in order to take the right choices and become a good citizen of benefit to his nation. So the parents have a paramount importance. Education of parents is vital. This is more important than teachers. With respect to infrastructure, if there are no real contributions through parents, the infrastructure of education and teachers would not effectuate a remarkable change. I believe that this is a vital point to consider, and I'd like to tell the world youth, you face the same challenges, the same issues, regardless of differences in cultures and civilizations and languages. The whole world has become a global village, and civilization is present everywhere. I believe that the successful experience of some countries would help the other countries on their march. Youth as well in the countries that were success stories, to help youth in other countries in order to put them on the right path, and to help them become away from religious radicalism and extremism, regardless of the apprehensions that has some causes. Violence may be for religious reasons, and I don't understand this. When I tell someone "Assalamu alaikum," peace upon you, I'm talking about peace. There is no religion that has been created to intimidate people and terror. So you have to be cautious with respect to radicalism and extremism for the future of your nations, and to spread peace and stability worldwide. If violence erupts and extremism is established, no country would be immune. This is supposed to be your objective because this is your future. I believe that I have expounded in answering your question. I wish the youth of the world to have the opportunity to have a new world that is governed by democracy, solidarity, equality. Our youth can bloom more without any apprehensions with respect to life and their future. Best wishes to all youth. Thank you. We need to talk is the theme of this forum. Let's now listen to the participants through some cards that we have received. The voice of Dr. Amir Azir. He's a pharmacist, Egyptian pharmacist, Canadian Egyptian pharmacist. Dr. Amir, where are you, Dr. Amir?
Our colleagues from this hall. I don't believe myself that I am in front of the President and all participants. I would like to thank you very much. I'm coming from Canada and I've heard about this conference. It is fantastic, and the youth that you are encouraging and this excellent achievement. I would like to thank you, Mr. President. My question is directed to, according me standing in front of the President, it has to be directed to the President. In fact, we have heard the difficulties you have confronted, and you know, but when we hear this from the head of the state concerning such difficulties, not only in words, your expression, even when you are expressing yourself and you're speaking about the difficulties, particularly in the increase of population that results in everything, all problems that comes from this. We are a country that has different potentialities. How can we benefit from this? It's a question. It's a very old idea since the prophets, when the crisis took place in Egypt at that time, he divided the country into different states or governorates. In every province, they have their own natural resources and lands and potentialities. Could the state start adopting this? They give these to investors, that the investors would establish local projects in which they are going to construct schools, institutions, and any infrastructure against that, instead of the state bearing such huge expenses, that they are going to bear this against they taking land to invest, and this will solve problems of the sons coming from this province. In addition to the infrastructure, they will find jobs, and they will find that, yes, there is a real development that is taking place. My son is working, my father is working, my son is going to this school and to this hospital. This is a development for all Egypt at the same time. And against, the state will not bear any expenses, because the state is confronting different pressures, and His Excellency the President spoke about this honestly, and it's excellent to hear this from the President himself. To what extent can we benefit from these natural resources in the country, and the citizen who is living in Upper Egypt and does not feel the real achievements that are taking place in Egypt. Thank you. Mr. President, can you comment, please? I would like to thank Dr. Amir, and I want to tell you, yes, I have the Prime Minister here, and I'm going to give him opportunity that he would speak. It is not proper that I am the only one to speak, so I ask the Prime Minister to take the floor. In the name of God, Mr. Thank you, Mr. President. In order to reply to this question of Dr. Amir, Egypt at present has a comprehensive development. All the ideas that you have spoken about, yes, it is existing, and that every province in Egypt would have total development that is taking place, and this is taking place in different provinces of Egypt. At present, we are witnessing a lot of development in the infrastructure. Either this is in road, electricity, extending natural gas pipes and network, or new cities that are to be established not only surrounding Great Cairo but in Delta as well. We have the new Alamein, the new Mansoura, the new Ismailia city, and in Upper Egypt as well we have 4 new cities to be established. And in Upper Egypt we have industrial development, and these lands were given free of charge according to the decision passed by His Excellency the President. All ideas that you have spoken about, we are seeking to realize, and that it would be really implemented. Concerning investment, all investment opportunities are available, and investors, you are welcome to give us all your ideas that are suitable in order to achieve this development that we are looking for in Egypt. There are different projects that are taking place in Upper Egypt at present, either in industrial, or agricultural, or in infrastructure. So I would like to tell you, Dr. Amir, and to confirm that all the ideas are welcomed, investors are welcomed, you are welcomed to invest in Egypt, and they are welcomed in different provinces in Egypt and in Upper Egypt as well. Thank you very much. Would you please allow me? I want to add a point. The problem that we are confronting, Dr. Amir, now, that we have a lot of hopes and aspirations and lot of demands as well. And the time allocated for us, you want to see a lot of things that are achieved. Egyptians want to have everything and to see everything, in spite of the strength of the movement. But still, as a result that the volume of our ambitions is very high. I do not want to say that we do not feel this. Yes, we know, but this was not really seen. It is still. Hence, we say we do not want to rush, we do not want to run, we want to jump in order to compensate what we have lost in the past. By the way, the problem is not in construction of a school or hospital. Even the problem is not in establishing an industrial institution. The problem is to find a good management and governance for this establishment, or a group to work. If you're speaking about school, I do not have a problem in constructing of schools, but I have a real problem in managing this school, and that we would have a good educational system. These are human beings. To construct a school is very easy for all of us, but in order to have a good management for all activities that you have, this is the real problem, and we are trying to solve this in cooperation with other countries. When we are speaking with the Germans, with the Japanese, with the Europeans, and I seize this opportunity for all the youth who are with us. Come cooperate with us in education. I do not tell them cooperate in any other field. Come with us and help us in education, in health, in order that we can provide education in a good manner and to have a real good education system, and those who are graduated from school would be fit for a job and as a citizen as well. When the doctor spoke about media, she spoke about media only, but those that formulates the character of the human being is the mosque and the church. They formulate the awareness of those people, school and education, the community as a whole as well. The roles of the country and the media as well. It is not only the media. And I would like to go back to Dr. Amir and tell him the problem in Egypt is not owning the infrastructure, but we should have the ability of managing this infrastructure in the appropriate manner. And thank you. Dear participants, I would like to refer that the first session for today and the first part of this session has concluded, and we are going to resume the second part of the session after a while, and I hope that you be here at 12:30. Thank you very much.